Well, thank you very much for coming down. Really appreciate your attendance, and a big thanks to Josh and the Hey guys for putting this on. It's a absolutely incredible community to be able to join and be able to contribute to. So thank you very much for that. As Josh said, I'm Adam. I'm the head of digital at this place, We Are Boutique, an integrated channel marketing agency in South Leeds. So this is our home. I think the area is currently branded as Holbeck Urban Village, which is lovely. Lots of creative agencies, other technology businesses, so some really good partnerships that we have around here. So another really good community vibe. I think they're currently in the process of rebranding the area as the South Bank of Leeds. So if anyone knows what something like London South Bank is like, then we'll see how that goes. Ooh. On button. Oh yeah, little sign. It's good. Boom, it's all good. We'll roll with it. So, F the funnel. This is a talk we started giving in April this year at the Leeds Digital Festival. Broadly, it's related to customer acquisition. So how we can most efficiently and effectively acquire customers, which is hopefully something that's of general interest to people here. We got a couple of bits of feedback from the talk in April. One was that it was quite heavy on the actual marketing tactics. So I've tried to zoom out a little bit today to hopefully keep it relevant for everyone. The other piece of feedback was that for a talk with this title, the participant expected the presenter to be will.i.am, which I am not. However, I have had his picture on my desk for the last 4 weeks, so I'm going to try and channel some of that energy and bring it to you today. Who the F am I? I normally don't really do this bit, but looked at the sort of past Hey talks and thought, actually, yeah, it might be a little bit relevant for me to just briefly mention who I am, where I've been, and why I hopefully might be qualified to talk to you on this topic. So I spent much of the last 10 years broadly in marketing, in digital marketing, working in both corporate environments, non-corporate environments, startups, SMEs. I initially started in London working for Microsoft in their global media team. Really good introduction to technology, working across everything from MSN from a publisher point of view, to Bing Search, to Skype and Xbox kind of innovation products. And then ultimately moved agency side, also in London, to Wunderman, part of WPP. Microsoft with a client of theirs, kind of a connection. Looking after their paid social, actually, so I went quite heavy into a specific channel, looking after Western European markets. And then ultimately moved from a network agency into the independent agency landscape, initially overseas, so spent best part of a year working in Melbourne, and now back here in the north. I feel very fortunate to have had a broad range of experience in a relatively compact period of time, and really to be able to find where I'd say thrive in a working environment. So independence really let us partner with the best people, several of whom are in this room currently. Work with the best clients, work on challenges that literally change on a daily, weekly basis. Nothing ever gets bored. And just the ability to be truly agnostic, so working with any particular technologies, which I'm sure lots of you can appreciate. So, before we go any further, could I ask, and I'll try and see, for a show of hands, for who really knows what the sales and marketing funnel or the purchase funnel actually is and how it works? Anyone familiar with it? Good? Good? Okay, cool. So, brief overview and a tiny bit of history. The first concept that was related to the sales and marketing funnel that you might be familiar with is actually from 1898, and someone called Elias St. Elmo Lewis, who came up with the ADA model, which with attention, interest, decision, action. And that's how he described the customer journey. First time that was pictorialized as a funnel was in about 1924. So it's been around for a while, which in some ways contributes to the main theme of this talk, which you'll have seen in the invite, which is largely how advertising has forgotten the role of brand. And we'll come on to that. So this is the funnel. Starts up at the top with, I'm going to point, look at that, with awareness. So this is when a prospect or a person first generally becomes aware that your brand, your product, or your service even exists. Moves on to consideration, whereby they've done a little bit of research. They're actually in market, so they have a need for what it is that you have to offer. They're actively searching for you. Preference. So they've probably read some reviews, they've probably asked some of their family and friends, they've started to form an idea and a short list. Hopefully you're on there, maybe one or two competitors as well. Into the purchase phase, where they transact, park cash, put their money where their mouth is. And finally, loyalty, where your goal is to make sure that people who've bought from you once buy from you again, buy more from you more often, and ultimately refer you to their networks, their family, friends, LinkedIn. So the funnel can be seen to be a model that broadly works. Its ambition is to describe a general journey that a customer might go through when they're looking to make a purchase. So why are we suggesting to get rid of it or think differently about it? Well, there's a few reasons that we'll come on to. The main reason relates again to this topic. When you overlay the funnel with the kind of current marketing mix, very digital-led, very technology-led that we work with, the tendency is to focus on these bottom two phases. Because digital marketing especially, and I have to watch myself here as a digital marketer, is so trackable, is so measurable, there's a big tendency to focus on these areas. So we can look at ROI of many of the channels that we work with. And that's all well and good. We absolutely should be doing that. But there's a tendency to forget that what happens here is that there's a glass ceiling. So if you're only hunting at this phase of the funnel, which pictorially is smaller and certainly is in terms of the potential audience you're trying to activate, you're forgetting these other phases. And you're forgetting the much broader audience that you could be activating if you were thinking with brand at the heart of what you do. So brands who go out there with a purpose and a message that's related to their ideals and what they want to achieve are much more likely to resonate with a broader audience. And you can still do your conversion aspect to make sure you're maximizing that opportunity, but you should absolutely be looking to push through the glass ceiling at every point. A couple of other reasons that digital and technology specifically we feel has impacted this. Obviously now there are just way more channels and touch points that a consumer has to consume information. There's far more moments for brands to possibly engage with them in. And that's led to basically noise. And this is a well-documented topic. There are just far more messages flying around than the madmen of the 60s, 70s, 80s could ever have imagined. So how do you cut through? There's a few ways. It's undeniable, if fairly obvious, that smartphones have also had an impact on this. Simply the ability to access information wherever you are, for brands to communicate with you wherever you are. This has fragmented that customer journey. So a model like the funnel, which likes a linear approach, it likes everyone to be fairly uniform in how they go about making their decisions. This has been fundamentally disrupted by technology. A couple of stats from Google, where that 82% of smartphone users consult their phones when they're in a store actively looking to make a purchase. And of that 82%, 1 in 10 of them had actually gone on to buy something else. And so if you ignore the absolute numbers of that, the difference that just having a phone in our pocket has made to whether we buy then and there on the spot or whether we shop around, that diversification has changed massively in the last 5-10 years. And as ever, price. Price certainly isn't a new consideration. It's one of the fundamental 4Ps of marketing. But if we overlay it with these other aspects of digitization, globalization, it's become ever more important. If you could be in a store experiencing a product and look on your phone to see if you could get it cheaper elsewhere, why wouldn't you do that? So it's not to say that you can't win the in-store battle. It's just to say that you have to think more about how you would do it. And you can start by having a purposeful brand. And if you've walked people all the way through that journey, if they're really bought into you, they're far less likely to use these channels to go away and shop elsewhere and convert in the moment. So just to briefly bring this to life for you before we move on, could I get another show of hands if you've ever made a spontaneous purchase? Yeah. You've seen something online, you've added it to your basket, you've bought it. Or you've been walking past something and you've just grabbed it and bought it. That's absolutely fair. And on the flip side of that, have you ever been convinced that you were going to buy something? You've done your research, you've whittled it down, you've asked your friends and family, you've read reviews, you've added it to your basket, and then the phone's rang and you got distracted and you never just quite went back to finish that purchase. Has that ever happened? Guilty. So all of these are advents from the norm and diverge from that journey that the funnel would like you to take. And that's why we're saying, in order to make the most of the opportunities that exist in the modern marketing landscape, you just need to think a bit differently. So, again, reacting to feedback, and not to overload you, there are two models that I'm going to suggest tonight. We're going to talk about when, and we're going to talk about how, in absence of the funnel. The two models are the 4H model and the 3H model, and please don't ask me why they're H's, because I don't have an answer for that. First of all, the 3H model describes when you might want to engage with the modern consumer. It actually is a model that isn't proprietary to us. Google came up with this when they acquired YouTube back in the day as a video content strategy. We apply it more broadly to all of our marketing channels across digital marketing, media, and PR that we look at for clients. The 3 H's are hygiene, hub, and hero. Hygiene activity describes that which you simply must do. It's par for the course, it's the rules for playing the game. Channels you might be thinking about here are everything from technical SEO, that sort of back-end work to make sure that when a customer's looking for something that you offer, they find you, to paid search, making the most of that opportunity, into things like paid social, again, playing that role between brand and conversion. Hub activity tends to be more seasonal or product category specific. So we talk about this in terms of joining conversations. Look at things like social listening, trending topics on Twitter, online, and how you can use content marketing, for example, to tap into those. Ooh. Hero activity is your bigger ticket brand building items. So we often think about broadcast here, TV, radio, but it could be quite targeted. It could be local press, trade press, whatever it might be that's going to engage most with your audience. But the objective of Hero is to sell that brand message. Still with me? So finally, how? And this is where we ask for a slight divergence from the traditional funnel. Certainly there's learnings from it in terms of the phases that you need to go through. But rather than that funnel model that goes top to bottom and implies that everyone has to fall all the way through, we prefer to think of it as a path along the way to purchase. You absolutely should engage with consumers along that path, but acknowledge that they're going to drop on and drop off. So the 4 H's are hunt, harmonize, harvest, and harness. In the hunting phase, you want to be using, again, more of those broadcast channels to go out and activate a new market. So people who absolutely in a targeted way have a tentative interest in what it might be that you have to offer, but probably haven't heard of you before. So you're thinking about messages and channels where you can engage with them and pique their interest for the first time. Harmonizing with them, you want to make sure that those people whose interest you have piqued are actually going to be interested in what you stand for as a business. And yet again, this is where brand comes into it. You want to make sure that your brand ideals and the things that you represent match with that audience's ideals, and they're far more likely to resonate with you and stick with you, stay on the journey to find out more. Harvest, this is where you're tempting them, making them buy, asking for their money, bringing them over the line. And if you've done the first two properly, that's going to make that much easier. So if we think about that in-store environment again, if you've done the first two, if they're already bought into who you are and what you do, they're less likely to be one of those 82% whipping out their phones and looking elsewhere. And finally, in harnessing, it's all about that brand experience. So how can you make sure that the purchase and post-purchase experience was so good that they're not going to think about going anywhere else for their next purchase? Again, you want them to buy from you again, buy more from you, and get more of their friends to buy from you as well. Hopefully that makes sense. And that's more or less it from me. Hopefully there's been a couple of insights there. Again, just from a broad perspective of how you think about going out. Who are your customers? Who are you talking to on a daily basis? How can you make sure that your messaging is resonating with them? Who do you work with that might be interested in some of these channel methodologies? Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.